Good morning. Today you are going to be making an X-ray style hand using oil pastels on black paper. I'm going to go ahead and show you what this whole process looks like, and at multiple points throughout here I'll tell you to pause this video or to let it run to the next step and pause at that next step so that you can catch up as you're doing the art here with me, and that way you can do your art and not have to listen to me for a long time prior to finishing. So the first step in this is to set your hand down on your paper, and you're going to trace out your hand. Now you're just going to use a normal pencil for all of this. For the purposes of making a video that you can actually see what's happening, I'm going to be using a white colored pencil, but you'll want something that's easier to hide. So just a normal number 2 pencil is great. When you set your hand down, it's easy to push your hand out and kind of create a bulge on your palm here. You don't want that. So notice how if I raise my hand up slightly, that bulge disappears. So pushing it down, raising it up. So you want no extra bulge from your palm. And go ahead and spread your fingers out a little bit, and you can apply pressure with your fingers in order to get your paper to hold still. And then you're just going to trace with your pencil straight up and down. You don't want it tipping in and making your fingers thinner. You want it straight up and down and trace out your whole hand here. So I'm going to trace out my hand. Again, you're doing this with a normal pencil rather than a colored pencil. I'm only using this so that you can see what's happening for the sake of this example. You do want to take your time and do a nice job tracing your hand out here, and then go ahead and trace out where your wrist exits the page as well, just so that you have that. Alright, so I've got my basic hand outline, and I will leave you a PowerPoint so that you can see the parts of, or the bones in your fingers as well. I don't have any good way to show that to you on this video, but what you're looking at is you have 1, 2, 3 bones in each finger, with the exception of your thumb. That one's a little bit different. It has 2. And then you also have a long, narrow bone in your hand itself. So these bones in your fingers are called your phalanges. And then you have metacarpals making up your hand. And then down here around your palm, you have what are just called carpals. And I'll show you a diagram, or have the sub show you a diagram of those as well. But what I want you to do right now is to lightly, with your pencil, just mark off where your knuckles are. So I'm going to mark knuckle, knuckle, and then where my hand, I've got a little bit of a flap of skin in here. We all do between our fingers, so push that as far back as you can, and just make a mark where the end of your fingers are. I'm going to do that same thing over here. I'm going to mark knuckles, knuckle, and knuckle, knuckle, and as far back as I can. Ooh, don't poke yourself. And then knuckle, knuckle. I'm going to mark my knuckle over here. On my thumb as well, I'm going to mark my knuckle and where my finger ends. So if I pull my hands off, I'm going to lightly trace those lines across. And on all of this, you want to be very light touched with your pencil, because you don't want these lines to show up on your final drawing. Excuse me. And you'll notice that down here, this is where my finger has kind of this extra skin in between the fingers, and so my knuckle is more down in this vicinity, and so I'm going to kind of use that as my final knuckle for all of these. Same thing with my thumb here and the tip of my thumb here. On your diagram, you're going to see that your phalanges have those 3 finger bones, and we'll draw those out according to what you see on the diagram, which when you pause this video, you'll switch over, or your teacher will switch over and show you that as well. But your finger bones are consecutively getting a little bit larger. So your first finger bone has kind of a curved piece like this, and then it dips in and comes out like this. And so it I'd have a little less of a curve there. Okay, so there's our first finger bone. Our second finger bone meets that one right here, and then it curves in and back out, in and back out. And then your third finger bone does the same thing. Here, curves in and back out. And you want this one to be a little longer, so if you go past where your knuckle is to make these consecutively longer, that is okay. This one has a little bit of a curve like that. So there's your phalanges on that first finger. You're going to do that same thing for each of your fingers, and I will let you pause the video at this point and continue to finish drawing. Okay, so we've paused and drawn all of your phalanges. Now we're going to come in and draw those metacarpals. And as far as a reference point on those, you can use your hand to get a general idea of where your palm starts. You can feel that underneath your hand here, so I can here. Or you can just know, well, the metacarpals need to be a little bit longer than this last phalange. And so I like to use that as my reference and think, okay, well, if my phalanges were this long, then my metacarpals need to come down a little bit below that. So I'm going to put my metacarpals down to about this line. And those, one for each finger, and we'll just draw those out also. Again, you're referencing the diagram that you'll be able to put up when this video is paused, but they basically have that same general bone shape that your phalanges have also. There's a bit of space over here on the left between the edge of my hand and this metacarpal bone as well. These don't have to be touching, but I wouldn't leave very much space between your finger bones if you're not going to have them touching. And this bone curves up kind of like that. And then we have somewhat of a ragged edge. And I'm going to pause and let you do the same while we finish the rest of the metacarpals. So we are done with our metacarpals. I didn't leave enough space, and I kind of ended up scrunching the one end by my thumb. So plan ahead, hopefully on yours. We're going to go ahead and add in the carpals. Hopefully you're familiar with the diagram of the hand at this point, and you'll realize, oh, well, we have 8 different carpals, and I tend to start with the largest one right under the middle finger, and these tend to overlap a little bit. This one's kind of like a potato shape, so it's long and oval, kind of like this. And then we have a smaller one in here, and another smaller one filling in that space out to the edge of the hand. And I have a larger carpal filling in this section down here. I have 4 more over on the left. And I notice that my pinky and ring finger, those carpals are one solid piece. It comes down like this. Then I have the overlap of another one here. And then I have one final carpal that's hanging out in here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Nope, I lied. One final carpal that's filling this space down here. All right, so there's all my carpals. We'll flip over and look at the wrist. There's 2 bones in the wrist, and so we have one that hugs this space right here, and it edges out this way and then comes around like this. And then the other bone starts out thinner up top, fills in this space, and has a slight angle to it like so. And we'll do the other side as well. There's our 2 wrist bones. All right, so we've got the basic outline of our hands. Now we get to come in and add some color. So the way you're going to do that is you're going to choose 2 oil pastels that are the same color but different shades. And so what I mean by that is I'm going to choose a dark blue and a light blue, which look very similar on our camera here, and I apologize for that. And then for each of these finger bones, you're going to color half in the light oil pastel color and half in the dark oil pastel color. It doesn't matter which half as long as you're consistent. So if I color all of the left side light, I want to make sure on every single finger bone, or every bone in my X-ray hand here, that the left side is light. If you choose to make the left side dark, that's fine. Just make sure that every bone, the left side is dark. So I'm going to show you what this looks like. And these oil pastels are big and chunky, so we can't get a ton of detail, but do your best. Kind of try and use the edge of the oil pastel to get a good color laydown. And we do want a pretty thick coat of color. I'm going to trace the left side of my finger bone. I'm going to draw a sharp line here. And so there's the left side, and I'm just going to fill that in with my oil pastel. It won't be perfect, but I'll get it as clean as I can. I'm going to grab my dark oil pastel, also blue, and outline this side, and slowly fill in that section in blue. I'm going to give it a little bit of space, because I would like to have some overlap or a gap between my two bones. I'm going to color in this one with that light blue, and the right side with the dark blue. Again, trying to leave a little bit of space, failing, but it's the thought that counts. Taking my time and shading in each of these. Okay, I'm going to pause the video, finish this up. You do the same with your two colors. They don't have to be blue, but you do need a light and a dark. Remember, all of the bones on either your left or your right side should be light, and the other side should be dark. So let's pause this video. I'll let you work, and I'll finish up mine as well. Hopefully you've had the chance to fill in the rest of your bones, as have I. And at this point, you probably have kind of messy hands. That's okay, because we're almost done. So to finish off this X-ray hand, what you're going to do is get some just chalk. Now, not oil pastels, but chalk. And we're going to outline your entire hand and arm with this chalk. I'm using white. You can use white or yellow, but we're sticking with those two colors. So I'm outlining where I traced before. Oops, I got into my oil pastels a little bit here. Be careful, because this will smudge easily, which is actually what we want it to do, but not yet. We want to be able to control the smudges on this. I'm tracing my whole hand here. If you got outside of your oil your lines with your oil pastels a little bit, now's the time that you can use this chalk. Just kind of create a new outline. All right. From here, I'm going to grab a Q-tip, and we're going to spread this out so that it gives your paper a glowing effect. Notice how I'm using all of these marks in straight lines going out from my hand. So I'm making those marks, and I'm being careful not to do too much, or it does start to turn into just a smudged mess instead of a glowing effect. I'm going to do this all the way around. I'll pause so that you can pause the video also and do this, or you can watch a little longer and see what this looks like at the end. Okay, so here's the final look of that chalk all blended out. At this point, you can be done with the chalk and do the last step. I noticed some oil pastels. Or, if you want to refine some of those chalk lines, if you see an area that doesn't look quite how you want it, you can come back in with the chalk and reapply it, and then grab your Q-tip and blend that back out again. Your final step is to grab a black oil pastel, and you're going to look in any of these areas where that chalk has kind of smudged up and over into your hand, and you're going to just go over that outline with oil pastel, the black oil pastel, to make a nice sharp line. You can also use this to go in between your finger bones and define those lines as well, so that you've got a nice separation there, and that really makes these pop. So I'm going to pause the video and finish this up. You guys can finish whatever step you're on as well, and I'll post a picture at the end of the video showing exactly what the final product looks like.